Hello and welcome. Tonight, ahead of the commencement of definite hearing of suits, Presidential Election Petition Court consolidates all the petitions filed by the Allied People's Movement, the Labour Party, the PDP, and their presidential candidates. To prevent a total collapse of power supply across the country, lawmakers in the Green Chamber call for urgent action. History is made as President Muhammadu Buhari officially inaugurates the second Niger Bridge, a landmark project in the southeast region which has now been named after him.
On business news tonight, African Development Bank President calls for reforms to reduce costs, time and legal complications on debt restructuring for African countries.
On sports news tonight, Arsenal forward Bukayo Saka signs a new contract which keeps him at a Premier League club until 2027.
From Abuja, the nation's capital, 6 days before the transition to a new administration, the United States government names its delegation to witness the handover ceremony in Abuja on May the 29th.
And international news from London. Residents in Russia's Belgorod region who have fled their homes due to fighting there have been urged not to return yet after an armed group attacked from across the border.
The Presidential Election Petition Court has consolidated the 3 petitions filed by the presidential candidates of the Allied People's Movement, the Labour Party, the People's Democratic Party, and their parties challenging the outcome of the last election. Now, the 5-man panel of justices led by Justice Haruna Samani says the consolidation is aimed at speedy hearing of the petitions and predicated on the grounds that the issues raised by the parties are similar. Our correspondent, Manuela Ekele, reports.
The pre-hearing session has come to a close after 2 weeks of hearing the petitions of the PDP, Labour Party and the Allied People's Movement, who are challenging the victory of Bola Tinubu as the president-elect. In attendance is the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, lawyers and members of the political parties involved in the case. Mr. Obi moves around the field courtroom as usual, exchanging pleasantries. The 5-man panel of justices arrive and go straight into consolidating the 3 petitions. The court gave the Labour Party and the People's Democratic Party 3 weeks to prove their case. To ensure a speedy hearing of the petitions, the court says there will be no oral examination of witnesses, as what will be required is the adoption of witness statements. The star witnesses will have 30 minutes to testify, while 20 minutes will be for cross-examination and 5 minutes for re-examination. The Allied People's Movement was given 1 day to prove its case, as it has only 1 witness to call. Hearing in the consolidation suit for all parties will begin on May 30th. Mr. Bola Tinubu, led by his lawyers, had opposed the call for consolidation, maintaining that merging all the petitions would affect his ability to defend all the issues that were raised against him by the petitioners. However, INEC, Labour Party, PDP and the APM remain neutral, leaving the decision to the court. Meanwhile, the councils for Tinubu and APC have disclosed their intention not to speak with the media on the court proceedings. A senior lawyer in the team of Tinubu, Mr. Niyi Akintola, informed the court that they have agreed that no lawyer will speak with the press on the proceedings, and anyone found guilty will be expelled from the team.
For the purposes of consolidation, the only thing important is that all 3 petitions, they are going to be heard together. But each one will maintain his identity. Yes. I hope you understand it. Will maintain his own identity at the end of the day. And judgment will be given in respect of each and every one of them. But it's just a matter of convenience to save time. That's why they were consolidated. And we have no problem with that.
In order to fast-track trial, we prepare what is called a witness statement on oath. So all that a witness is supposed to state are already contained there. So no need the witness coming and repeating what is already there. The witness merely adopts that witness statement on oath.
It's now certain the definite hearing in the consolidated suit has been fixed for May 30, where the petitioners and the respondents will field their candidates to testify according to the dates given to them by the courts. The court sitting is also expected to elapse on September 16, but the judgment may come before the date as decided by the court. From the Court of Appeal, venue of the Presidential Election Tribunal, Emanuela Ekele, Channels Television News.
As the saying goes, a stitch in time saves 9. Well, that may just be the message from the House of Representatives, which is urging the federal government to find a lasting solution to the issue of power distribution and supply across the country. This was the resolution after a motion of urgent importance by Honorable Onyeme Idem over the incessant interruption of power supply across the nation in the past few weeks. Our correspondent Terry Kume reports that the House also rejected a motion urging the British government to halt the planned ban by the British government families of Nigerian students.
Plenary resumes in the House of Representatives after an abrupt adjournment last Wednesday due to the induction of members-elect of the 10th Assembly. The day begins with a ranking member of the main opposition People's Democratic Party, Honorable Jerry Alagboso from Imo State, defecting to the ruling All Progressives Congress.
Mr. Speaker, the time for me to leave PDP and join my colleagues and brothers in APC is now. Thank you, brother.
3 matters of urgent public importance are then raised. First, Honorable Onyeme Idem draws the attention of the House to the dwindling electricity supply across the country.
Millions of electricity consumers in Nigerian homes and communities may be plunged into darkness in the coming weeks as the federal government, through the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, and the market operator, EMO, have begun massive disconnection of debtor electricity distribution companies, DISCO, from the national grid. Note that an extension of the grace period of 60 days given to the defaulters DISCOs, wherewith they are expected to comply with the provisions of the market rules, respect to payment of the outstanding invoices, posting of adequate bank guarantees, and forwarding their active power purchase agreement to the MO/TCN is almost over.
Next, Honorable Sada Soli moves a motion on the need to absorb student returnees from Sudan into institutions across the country.
Cognizant of the fact for the federal government to consider the quota system imposed on certain courses such as law and medicine to waive them for the students concerned in order to enable them continue with their programs pending the resolution of the Sudan crisis.
Both motions are adopted. However, the final motion of urgent public importance from Honorable Taiwo Oluga does not receive the acceptance of the Green Chamber.
The need to urge the government of the United Kingdom to desist from banning Nigerian student immigrants from migrating with their families.
The rejection of the House comes amid concerns over the rising number of Nigerians leaving the country in search of better opportunities and living conditions. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
Well, history is made today as the 3.2-kilometer second Niger Bridge has been commissioned by President Muhammadu Buhari. The bridge, which has now been named after the president, built at a contract sum of over 206 billion naira, was handed over to the governments of Anambra and Delta states as hosts. The president joined the event virtually in company of the Federal Executive Council, while the governors of Anambra and Imo states, as well as the Minister of Labour and Employment, Dr. Chris Ngege, were present at the Asaba interchange of the bridge.
On March the 10th, 2014, the groundbreaking ceremony for the second Niger Bridge was performed. 9 years after, dignitaries and guests, including the governors of Anambra and Imo states, Minister of Labour and Employment, and traditional leaders are gathered to witness the commissioning of this infrastructure.
Short message, less than 3 minutes.
The Minister of Labour and Employment gives his remarks on the strategic importance of the project.
Because this bridge, in actual fact, signifies the major handshake between the East and the West, and the East and the North. These are the people that use this road.
Anambra State Governor Chukwuma Soludo, who expressed his gratitude, speaks on the benefits of the second Niger bridge.
It is our pleasure, overjoyed today in the southeast, that we have come to take good for one of them, and the major one at that. And that is the second Niger bridge.
For the Minister of Works and Housing, who spoke virtually, he highlights some other strategic projects of the President.
It is now my pleasure, sir, to invite you, Your Excellency, to dedicate and hand over the following projects for public use. The first is the Zamfara Federal Secretariat Guzo, the Bayelsa Federal Secretariat Yenegua, the Anambra Federal Secretariat in Oka, the Econ Bridge in Cross River, the Loko Oweto Bridge linking Nasarawa and Benue. And because my colleagues in Cabinet and the governors of the Southeast who have spoken to me have decided that the second Niger bridge must have a name, in consultation with them, we have decided that you will also declare open the Muhammadu Buhari second Niger bridge linking Anambra and Delta. And of course, 200 kilometers of Kaduna-Kano-Dua carriageway.
President Muhammadu Buhari, in a virtual appearance, says the three bridges, including the Ikom and Loko Weto bridges, and structures of connectivity, interaction and integration. He notes that the projects already commissioned signal prosperity for the people.
Without investing in infrastructure, the road out of poverty is much tougher. So, as we look at the debt profile, I urge us to also look at the assets and investment profiles, some of which was paid for by debt and some by investment income. In 8 years, I am proud to say that we have doubled Nigeria's stock of infrastructure to GDP from about 20% to over 40%, and that is no small undertaking.
The Minister of Labour and Employment then performs the official commissioning of the bridge.
In the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord.
Apart from the second Niger bridge, other projects including the 200-kilometer Abuja-Kaduna road and 3 federal secretariats in Anambra, Bayelsa and Zamfara states have now been delivered as the nation awaits a new administration come May 29th.
President Muhammadu Buhari today presided over an extraordinary meeting of the Federal Executive Council at the Chamber in Abuja. The meeting reviewed the last batch of memos from the various ministries, departments and agencies, totaling about 41, as the administration winds down in 6 days. The meeting, which started at midday at the council chambers, had in attendance the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa, the National Security Advisor, Major General Babagana Monguno, retired, with several ministers in attendance, and lasted for about 7 hours. The second extraordinary Federal Executive Council meeting this year comes hours before the valedictory council meeting scheduled for Wednesday, May the 24th. After the council meeting, the ministers for the first time did not converge for the regular weekly briefing, as all media engagements were postponed until Wednesday. Meanwhile, it was indeed a busy day for the president, who again defended his decision to close the country's land borders back in 2019. Speaking at the official unveiling of the 19.6 billion naira customs edifice located in the Maitama district in the nation's capital, the president said his action then was to encourage Nigerians to produce their own food for consumption. He also says although his decision to close the borders to enforce local consumption was initially criticized, Nigerians have now embraced it.
And I deliberately closed the borders because knowing Nigerians, they order rice and give some Niger address, and then they bring the rice here. And with our land and our potentialities, God, we thank God, Nigeria is favored. We have people, we have land, we have weather. How many nations are so lucky as Nigeria in the world? Very few nations are as lucky as we are. We thank God for that. So closing that border, 1,600 kilometers, more than that, from Lake Chad to Benin. And Nigeria insists that they have to impress their neighbors and other people, that they eat foreign rice. I said, no rice. You either you eat what you grow what you eat, or you die. I think I tried to make my point. And later, Nigeria appreciated it because it provides more jobs. People go back to the land. We have the land, and we produce what we eat. Let whoever grow excess rice eat his own rice or sell it somewhere else, but not to Nigeria.
President Muhammadu Buhari. In part two, after the break, 6 days before the transition to a new administration, the United States government names its delegation to witness the handover ceremony in Abuja come May the 29th. Do join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10, live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Ahead of the commencement of definite hearing of suits, Presidential Election Petition Court consolidates all the petitions filed by the Allied People's Movement, the Labour Party, the PDP, and their presidential candidates. To prevent a total collapse of power supply across the country, lawmakers in the Green Chamber call for urgent action. History is made as President Muhammadu Buhari officially inaugurates the second Niger Bridge, a landmark project in the southeast region, which has now been named after him. And residents in Russia's Belgorod region who have fled their homes due to fighting there have been urged not to return yet after an armed group attacked them or attacked from across the border. Afrobeat singer Seun Kuti has been released on bail. His lawyer, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Adeyinka Olumide Fushika, confirmed that he was released around 7:30 p.m. today. His lawyers also said he was released to his family after meeting his bail conditions. They also confirmed that he would be at the magistrate court tomorrow for the proceedings, which was adjourned today. The purpose of that proceeding is to receive the DPP's advice. Earlier today, the Chief Magistrate's Court sitting in the Yaba area of Lagos failed to sit in the case against the Afrobeat singer Seun Kuti. Now, Seun Kuti was brought to the Magistrate Court, but upon learning of the absence of the magistrate, he was immediately taken to the police station at Banti. One of Seun Kuti's lawyers confirmed to Channels Television that the case had been adjourned till Wednesday, May the 24th. Let's now head to the nation's capital, and our Victor Matthias is standing by to give us the very latest from our Abuja studios. Hello, Victor.
Hello, Ayotunde. Welcome to the nation's capital, Abuja. Now, U.S. President Joe Biden has announced a delegation that is expected to attend the inauguration of President-elect Bola Tinubu next Monday. The White House stated this in an official statement titled, President Biden announces presidential delegation to the Federal Republic of Nigeria to attend the inauguration of His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu. According to the statement, the 9-member delegation will be led by the Secretary of the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, Marcia L. Fudge. Other members of the delegation include Chargé d'Affaires of the U.S. Embassy in Abuja, Mr. David Green, United States Representative Sidney Kamlega-Dove, and Undersecretary of Commerce for International Trade, U.S. Department of Commerce, Marisa Lego. Meanwhile, a former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Mr. Tony Blair, has visited the President-elect Senator Bola Tinubu. The former Prime Minister, who arrived at the Defense House at about 5 p.m., proceeded to meet with the President-elect behind closed doors. At the end of the meeting, which lasted an hour, The former Prime Minister and the President-elect exchanged pleasantries before departing the Defense House. The President-elect has, however, explained that the visit of Mr. Blair was to discuss mutual interest between Nigeria and the Tony Blair Institute for Good Governance, an institute owned by the former UK Prime Minister. Mr. Tinubu, who gave this information on his official Twitter account, wrote, quote, "I received former British Prime Minister and founder of the Tony Blair Institute for Good Governance, Mr. Tony Blair, at the Defense House, Abuja earlier today. We discussed areas of mutual interest and how Nigeria can continue to benefit from the amazing work of the Institute." End of quote. Now, ahead of the inauguration of the 10th National Assembly, the national chairman of the APC, Senator Abdullahi Adamu, has warned members-elect against referring to the party's endorsed candidate, Tajuddin Abbas, as the substantive Speaker of the 10th House of Representatives. Speaking in Abuja at a meeting with some members-elect led by Representative Tajuddin Abbas, Senator Adamu says the endorsed candidate remains one of the aspirants until elected. Senator Adamu adds that it is not in the position of the party and its National Working Committee to determine who becomes the Speaker of the House of Representatives without going through an election on the floor of the House.
Quite a number of you have referred to Honorable Abbas as the Speaker. Please, he is one of the aspirants. He will become a Speaker no matter our position. If you all say, okay, there will be no voting on the floor, then we can make the Speaker here now. But the laws governing that office are very clear. You will end up on the day of proclamation by the President, Commander-in-Chief of the 10th National Assembly, the Speaker, the clerk to the National Assembly will conduct election. There's no option. There will be election. When you come out of that election, and they take his hand, raise his hand, and the President, the Speaker, he gets sworn in by the clerk. Once he is sworn in, then that nomenclature becomes most appropriate.
Still in the National Assembly, Senate President Ahmed Lawan has refuted reports that he has joined the race for the presidency of the 10th Senate. In a press statement personally signed by him, Senator Lawan states that he has never told or held a meeting with anyone that he is running for the presidency of the 10th Senate. He insists that he is a part of the leadership of the APC, which is seeking to find solutions to the numerous issues arising from the contest for the leadership of the 10th National Assembly and will continue to remain focused on that. The contest for the position of principal officers of the National Assembly is causing friction in the ruling party as some lawmakers insist on contesting for the positions despite the party's selection of its preferred candidates. Now, the Senate has confirmed the nomination of Mrs. Abike Dabiri-Erewa for the reappointment as the chairman and CEO of Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, NIDCOM, for a second term. President Buhari had written to the Senate requesting that the upper chamber confirm her appointment. The Senate has also confirmed the appointment of Mr. Bernard Okumagba, Patrick Aisowereng, and Kurian Uchegbu as members of the governing board of the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC. In the meantime, Rivers State Governor Mr. Nyesom Wike has commissioned yet another road project in preparation for his exit on Monday. Speaking at the ceremony in Elele community in Ikwere local government area, the governor expressed fulfillment in completing the project as promised.
The latest port of call for the ongoing project inauguration in River State is Elele in Ikwere local government area, where the second phase of the community's internal roads await commissioning.
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen.
It comprises 12 different roads with a total length of 9 kilometers, all completed within a 6-month schedule.
The project consists of 12 separate roads, and the total length of the project is approximately 9 kilometers with drains. The project was executed and completed on schedule.
To inaugurate the roads is Governor Nyesom Wike, who is commended by local authorities for keeping to his promise of completing the project before leaving office.
We will continue to remember you. We will continue to love you and your family. We will continue to listen and obey you. We will continue to follow your leadership. You have not only built infrastructure, you have built men. Future, Nigerians will see the capacity of men you have built. Thank you for coming with your entourage, and may God Almighty bless you. Thank you.
Governor Wike expresses fulfillment in the completion of the project, even as he thanks indigents for supporting his administration.
Today is 23rd of May, 2023. To the glory of God, we are here to fulfill that promise we have made. So this again is another promise made and promise fulfilled. I'm sure the people are happy, and I want to use this opportunity to thank you for your support during the last general election. I thank you for what you've shown, your commitment, your support for all our candidates from the National Assembly, Governorship Assembly, and even the presidential election. I thank you so much. We commissioned this second phase of Elele internal roads to be used by our people in the name of God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit.
The road infrastructure is expected to raise the socio-economic standard of the people of Elele in Ikwere local government area.
Now, still ahead on the news at 10, African Development Bank called for reforms to reduce cost, time, and legal complications on debt restructuring for African countries. That's on Business News. Do join us again. Welcome back. All things being equal, within the next 6 months, Lagos may be releasing electric mass transit buses for use in the state. The buses, said to be Nigeria's first ever electric mass transit buses, are powered by Oando Clean Energy in partnership with the Lagos Metropolitan Area Transport Authority, Lamata. At the launch of the electric mass transit buses in Lagos, the partners say the vehicles are expected to provide sustainable and clean mode of transportation.
When the relationship between Oando Clean Energy and the Lagos State government budded in April of 2022, it was with the long-term view to address the emission of greenhouse gases, particularly as caused by the transport sector in the state. This is more so since Lagos State is projected to have more than 100 million residents by the year 2100, making it the world's most populous city. The need to plan for the future with zero emission drives Oando Clean Energy, the renewable energy business subsidiary of Oando Energy, to introduce electric mass transit buses.
We see sea levels expected to rise over 2 meters by the end of the century. If nothing is done, it is our collective responsibility to ensure that we minimize the effect of these rises. Every oil and gas company globally has seen a shift in the mindset. Our focus before was to explore fossil fuels, but now we see a low carbon future as part of our responsibility.
And at this event, which signals the official launch of these eco-friendly buses, the Lagos State government commits to making this partnership work.
By this partnership, we just want the world to know that Lagos is ready to do business with everybody, provided the interests of Lagosians are well protected.
For the state governor, who is represented by the Commissioner for Transportation, this initiative is in tandem with the state's plan to reach net zero emissions by the year 2050, 10 years ahead of the federal government.
It is also instructive to note that Lagos is the only state in Nigeria that has prepared and initiated the execution of a climate action plan. The plan outlines 26 efforts covering adaptation and mitigation actions to build a sustainable low-carbon economy in the pursuit of achieving net zero carbon emission by 2050.
The next 6 months will ensure data gathering that will assist the proof of concept to run.
For me, the most exciting part of this is the fact that they have zero tailpipe emission. So there's zero noise emission, there's zero tailpipe emission.
Part of the plan is to have as many as 12,000 of these buses ply in different parts of the state over the next 5 years.
Over 70 companies have so far benefited from the $300 million Nigerian Content Intervention Funds for asset acquisition, manufacturing, loan refinancing, and project financing in the oil and gas industry. This was disclosed during the 4th edition of the Nigerian Oil and Gas Opportunity Fair 2023 that took place at the Niger Content Tower in Yenagoa, Bayelsa State. The Executive Secretary of the NCDMB reiterated that the fund was introduced to unearth the critical role that funding plays in realizing the opportunities within the oil and gas industry, which the board has widened the options for accessing it.
This is the 4th edition of the Nigerian Oil and Gas Opportunity Fair, and it brought together top industry players in the sector to Yenagoa, the Bayelsa State capital, for 2 days to explore various opportunities for growth within the oil and gas value chain. The theme for this year's fair is Oil and Gas Industry, Catalyst and Fuel for the Industrialization of Nigeria, and some of the participants highlight the pivotal role that the oil and gas is expected to play in driving the economic growth and development of Nigeria.
I am looking forward, together with my team from Shell, to being active participants of this fair over the next 2 days, because I believe together we can actually bring our industry back to the enviable position it's always been, despite the blips of the past couple of years.
Next to address the gathering is the Group Chief Executive Officer, NNPC Limited, and his message centers on what needs to be done for the oil and gas industry in Nigeria to thrive beyond what it is now.
The only way this industry can become the catalyst and fuel for that is to build gas. And we're focused on domestic gas, as we also look for money from gas that can go to other countries. Secondly, everybody's talking about domestic refining. You have seen what we are doing, so we don't talk about it. You know, we're not tired of lamenting. When we deliver, you will see.
Delivering his keynote address, the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board, Simbi Wabote, believes that the oil and gas sector can serve as the catalyst that could lead the nation to achieve the desired double-digit GDP growth rate.
One probable means through which double-digit GDP growth can be achieved is by harnessing the array of opportunities that exist in various categories enabled by the oil and gas industry. In the aspect of creating opportunities, the NOGIC Act sets the minimum targets in 278 services across oil and gas value chain in its schedule.
There were wares on display by some participating companies, and participants at the event went round the stalls to have a feel of what's on offer.
The Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development is set to provide at least 5 billion naira loan for livestock farming in Nigeria. The Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Mr. Mohammed Abubakar, made this known at a news conference in Abuja. According to him, the recapitalization of the Bank of Agriculture by the federal government engendered this initiative by the ministry. Mr. Abubakar highlighted the level of attention paid to crop production, neglecting other areas of agriculture, including livestock production. He urged livestock farmers to visit any branch of the Bank of Agriculture across the country to benefit from the scheme.
This particular briefing today is on a scheme to provide loans to livestock farmers in this country. The bank is being recapitalized And when I spoke with the livestock farmers time and time, I said we will be able to do something, just as is being done in the crop sector. Right now, there is about 5 billion naira in the Bank of Agri as part of the recapitalization that will be given out to livestock herders. It may even be more. The bank is still being recapitalized. So more money will be coming to the bank. And I have said it earlier today. I have no doubt that the incoming administration of His Excellency President-elect Bola Aswaju Ahmed Tinubu will not derail agriculturally from what the current administration of President Buhari is doing. So this is something that I believe will be sustained and will continue. For the livestock farmers, the associations, the leaders, and any interested party, already they have started talking with Bank of Agriculture. I've had some meetings with them. So go through the Bank of Agric for all the requirement to be able to obtain these loans.
Business News is up next with Ann Wilder.
Thank you, Ayotunde. Hello and welcome to Business News. African leaders and heads of governments need reforms in order to reduce costs, time, and legal complications on debt restructuring for their countries. And that's according to the president of the African Development Bank, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina. He gave the recommendation while delivering his opening remarks at the 2023 annual meeting in Cairo, Egypt. The AFDB president explains that Africa will require up to 144 billion naira in a year to recover from the impact of COVID-19 pandemic and will need 1.3 trillion naira annually to achieve its sustainable development needs by the year 2030. Meanwhile, Dr. Adesina mentions that Africa stands to attract billions of dollars in green energy resource as the continent accounts for 80% of global platinum deposits, 50% of cobalt, 40% of nickel, and substantial deposits of lithium. The International Organization of Securities Commissions has issued its policy recommendations on how to improve global standards for crypto assets regulations across the world. In a document released today, the Global Standards Setter for Securities Markets says this initiative is designed to bring out ways that clients should be protected and how crypto trading should meet the standards that apply in public markets. Meanwhile, the association has opened a public consultation on the recommendations and aims to finalize them by the end of this year. The Lagos State government has launched its 115 billion naira Series 1 2033 bond, as well as the 19.81 billion naira 7-year Ejara Sukuk for 2030. Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, who made this known to journalists today in Lagos, says the issuance is under the state's 1 trillion naira debt and hybrid program. He also highlighted what the government intends to do with the proceeds of the first set of this amount from the hybrid bond issuance.
Gladdens your heart to know that part of the funds that you have raised for us will be used to improve, the ongoing construction on that corridor to ease, your movement and to ensure that you get home, at reasonable time. And there's also another road I want to do. It's a new bypass. The proceeds of the Sukuk and some of the proceeds from the bond will be utilized, on that corridor. Because we're a low-lying state and we're always, challenged by climate change and all of it. So another significant part of it will be used for drainage works, sea shoreline embankment, and the lagoon embankment and drainage services.
Well, it's another win for the domestic stock market today. Buying interest in some big banks drove the equities benchmark performance indicator higher at the close of trade today. Let's hear the details from Will Ibong.
Welcome to the Stock Market Report. The bull is having a good run in the markets. Stocks are on the rise as investors' bullish sentiments drove the all-share index higher today by 0.48%. It's a fantastic move, if I may say so. And look, it's all green on the activity chart, indicating investors' buy sentiments. And this is thanks to market giants in the oil and gas, consumer goods, and banking sectors. Oil and gas. For oil and gas, we had O&O doing its thing there. Banking, we had stocks like Zenith, GTCO, Access Holdings, and FBN Holdings driving that index higher 1.55%. Also for the consumer goods, we saw PZ Cussons and Dangote Sugar driving the bullish sentiments there. Now let's check out the stocks that had the most price action. Transcorp is on the move today. We see Transcorp with a 9.85% uptick to close at 2 naira 90 kobo from its open of 2 naira 64 kobo. Closely followed by Triple G and Unilever. Analysts did say earlier today that the equities market may be the better bet to edge against skyrocketing inflation. Well, momentum is still high in the markets, even as we count down to the central bank's MPC decision tomorrow. And that's the stock market report for today. I'm Will Ibang.
And that's business news for tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. The rest of the news at 10 continues now with Ayotunde.
Thank you, Anne. Authorities in Moscow say armed insurgents who crossed the border from Ukraine to launch attacks in Russia's Belgorod region have been defeated. Villages in the border region were evacuated after coming under sustained shell fire. Russia says that 70 of the attackers have been killed and insists the fighters are Ukrainian. Here's Sami Puza with more international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Residents in Russia's Belgorod region who have fled their homes due to fighting there have been urged not to return yet after an armed group attacked from across the border. In its daily briefing, the Russian Defense Ministry showed footage they claimed was from the attack, saying more than 70 infiltrators had been killed. Russian officials say an armed sabotage group crossed from Ukraine and attacked the district, and that a terrorism investigation has been launched. Ukraine denies responsibility and said Russian citizens from 2 paramilitary groups were behind the incursion.
In and of itself, this is not a game changer. This is probably more than anything else what in the military terms would be called a shaping operation, preparing the battlefield for the inevitable and probably looming Ukrainian counteroffensive. Instead, this is really a chance to do 2 things. One is to rattle the Russians, make them worried about the possibility of risings amongst their own people, but secondly, force the Russians to disperse their troops, to move some of their reinforcements towards Belgorod region, hopefully, I think Ukraine must hope, opening up areas for sort of a major attack in the next week or so.
Brazil has declared a 6-month animal health emergency after several cases of avian flu were found in wild birds. 7 cases have been reported in Espírito Santo state, with another discovered in Rio de Janeiro state. The emergency declaration makes it easier for the government to now bring in measures to stop the highly infectious H5N1 virus from spreading. Brazil is the world's largest exporter of chicken meat, with annual sales of nearly $10 billion. The former Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan has arrived with his wife at an Islamabad court amid tight security as he battles corruption charges. Khan was questioned by an anti-graft agency, according to his lawyer, less than a week after he rejected a summons to appear and denounced the allegations against him, and was later freed on bail. The US Secret Service has said it has detained the driver of a rented box truck that crashed into security barriers near the White House. Investigators also found a Nazi swastika flag that apparently came from inside the truck, which crashed into barriers at Lafayette Square adjacent to the White House grounds. Officers retrieved the flag and plastic evidence bags that had been laid out on the sidewalk following the crash. A Secret Service official said nobody had been hurt. Police divers have started searching a reservoir in Portugal in the long-running investigation into the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. The Arade Dam is 50 kilometres from where the British toddler went missing in Praia de Luz 16 years ago. The operation is being led by German police looking for evidence to link her disappearance to Christian Bruckner. The 45-year-old German national was made a formal suspect, or arguido, by Portuguese prosecutors in 2022. Prince Harry has lost a bid to legally challenge the British government's decision not to allow him to pay for police protection while he is in the United Kingdom. King Charles's younger son was stripped of the police security usually afforded to royal figures after he and his American wife Meghan stepped down from their official roles in 2020 to move to the United States. The High Court in London, which last year already agreed he should be allowed to challenge an original decision to end the protection, ruled he could not seek a judicial review over whether to let him pay for the specialist police officers himself. And climate protesters had to be carried out of the energy giant Shell's annual shareholder meeting in London. Security staff shielded Shell Chief Executive Wael Sawan and the firm's board of directors as climate protesters tried unsuccessfully to storm the stage. At one point, dozens of security staff formed a human chain on the stage to shield executives and directors from protesters running towards them and attempting to climb the stage. It's after Shell reported profits of $39.9 billion for 2022, double the previous year's total and the highest in its 115-year history. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. Jeffrey Uzono is raring to go with the latest in the world of sports. Jeffrey.
Thanks, Ayotunde, and it's quite an exciting time if you're a lover of the Nigerian Professional Football League, as they have announced, the IMC has announced that it will deploy the best of technology so that there will be live streaming of all football matches at the local scene. He made his announcement today in Lagos.
Players should be the focus, not the administrators. When people leave Nigeria to go and play in other countries, minor countries, people wondering why they're going there. So I don't want to mention names of countries for diplomatic reasons. Some countries will find out, why should Nigeria footballer go there and play? But because the system is not good enough, the system is rotten, they just have to look for other opportunities. However lowly the country may be, as long as they pay better than what we are doing here. Meanwhile, Nigeria has more money than those countries. We are about more than 200 million people. We have the market, yet players are not getting what they should get. So our target is that a footballer in Nigeria must earn the least $1 million per month, the least paid.
And outside our shores, in spite of the fact that Arsenal could not secure a win at the Premier League, Bukayo Saka has signed a new contract that will keep him at the club till 2027. The 21-year-old played a pivotal role in the club's unsuccessful title push this season. He scored 14 goals in all competitions and provided 11 assists. And that's it on the sports news. I'm Jeffrey Uzono. Ayotunde is back to you for the rest of the news at 10.
Many thanks, Jeffrey. And the main news again. The Presidential Election Petition Court today consolidated all the petitions filed by the Allied People's Movement, APM, the Labour Party, LP, the People's Democratic Party, the PDP, and their presidential candidates. Also today, lawmakers in the Green Chamber of the National Assembly called for urgent action to prevent a total collapse of power supply across the country. And history was made today as President Muhammadu Buhari officially inaugurated the second Niger Bridge, a landmark project in the southeast region of the country, which has now been named after him. And authorities in Moscow say armed insurgents who crossed the border from Ukraine to launch attacks in Russia's Belgorod region have been defeated. And that's the news at 10 tonight. Many thanks for watching. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. Do have a good night.